Hey guys, it's Thomas here and welcome back to my channel and welcome to a slightly different kind of video. I wanted to do a video based on real life theme parks and real life coasters and rides as opposed to the virtual ones of Planet Coaster. So I thought what I'd do is I would find a tier list that has the main attractions at Alton Towers in the UK, which is my local park. It's about 40 minutes from where I live. And I thought I would kind of rank all the attractions, all the main attractions that is, at the park from, as you can see, we've got 5 tiers here which I've set up. So we've got Elite, must ride every time I visit, just a good ride, not bad, and then Z list, a ride I probably wouldn't bother with, or just, not necessarily a bad ride, just one I'm not particularly that hooked on. I thought I would just kind of go through and just give my personal opinions. If you want to see more of these type of videos, then do let me know, and do like and subscribe this, just so I know that you are enjoying this sort of video. And also let me know in the comments if you agree with what I put or disagree, because I appreciate my opinions may differ slightly to other people's. So first of all, we have the Smiler. Now, the Smiler was manufactured by Gerstlauer. It was the world's first Gerstlauer Infinity Coaster. It opened at the park in 2013, and it holds the world record for the most inversions on a roller coaster with 14. Now, the Smiler has had its fair share of bad press as well as good press. I'm going to judge it based on the ride experience, as a just as a guest, not on the ride history itself. And I have to say, I'm starting off on a good note here. For me, it's in the Elite section. For me, the Smiler it is a great ride length. It's not over too quickly. Obviously, you've got the 14 inversions, so there's always something going off there. You've got the 2 lift hills, so you almost feel like you're getting 2 coasters for the price of one. And the whole idea of it with the sort of the marmalizer and the effects going off there, I just think means that the Smiler can be placed in the Elite section. And I have to say, if you ever visit Alton Towers and you've never been on any of the rides there whatsoever, you have to make sure that the Smiler is definitely on your list. You cannot leave that park until you've been on it. So yeah, for me, the Smiler is Elite. Next up, we have Oblivion. Now, Oblivion was actually a prototype dive coaster from B&M, Bollinger & Mabillard, and it opened in 1998. And when it opened, it was marketed as the world's first vertical drop coaster, which as you can see from the photos, it leans over, hangs you over the edge, and takes you straight underground. And believe it or not, with a maximum speed of 68 miles an hour, it's actually the 3rd fastest roller coaster in the UK, behind Stealth at Thorpe Park and the big one at Blackpool Pleasure Beach, which is quite interesting considering Rita, which we've got coming up on this tier list, doesn't actually overtake it, even though that is a launch coaster the same as Stealth. So Oblivion, for me, my personal opinion, I would say this is a must ride. I think the uniqueness of the ride, because it's a vertical drop coaster, I think makes it a must ride for me. I do think it is let down by the fact it is such a short coaster. However, I do appreciate that it was built in 1998 and it was the first of its kind, and the whole selling point was the drop. Now, if you look at something like, I don't know, SheiKra at Busch Gardens in Tampa, or something like that, dive coasters nowadays do go on for a little bit longer, and there is a little bit more to the track. That is my only downside to Oblivion, is the fact that it is so short. I wish it was a bit of a longer ride, but unfortunately it's not. So for me, it has to go must ride, just because it is a good ride, but for me it's just a little bit too short to be put in the Elite section. Right, the Runaway Mine Train. So the Runaway Mine Train it's a powered steel roller coaster by Mack Rides of Germany, and it opened in 1992. So you go around it on 2 laps. It is just a standard runaway train. There's nothing too insane about it. It does interact with the river rapids, which is a really nice feature of it. And as a Runaway train goes, it's not a bad layout. For me, it's somewhere between good and not bad. I don't know if I can push it into the good section. I would say every time I go, I do like to try and go on the Runaway train if I've got time, but I won't sacrifice time on other rides to go on it, if that makes sense. For me, one of the best things is the staff that work on there. When the train leaves the station, there's like a phrase of "choo choo" that they will shout and scream to everyone as the train goes, and it's become sort of like a feature of that ride now, that the operator just shouts "choo choo" as the train goes, and everyone loves it. I do anyway. Not everyone might. So yeah, for me, it's between good and not bad. I'm going to put it in not bad, but it's very close to being in good. Just because you know, there isn't any real thrills on it. It's not the fastest Runaway train. It's not. I mean, Runaway is definitely clutching at straws for the name of it as to how quick or how not so quick it does go. But yeah, I do enjoy the ride, so it's not a criticism of it. Next up, we have the Congo River Rapids, which is just a standard Intamin River Rapids ride. It's been operating since 1986 in the park, so you know it's a good 35 years old, which does make, you know, it's quite an impressive length to be, you know, operating for. Now, the River Rapids for me, without being too insulting, this has to go in Z list for me, unfortunately. I do like River Rapids rides, but I just think that the one at Alton Towers is very sort of tame. Other than the waterfall section, it's a very tame River Rapids. You don't tend to get wet. People kind of sit on there with Max on, or you know, or waterproofs, and they don't really get that wet, in all honesty, unless it's raining. That you probably get more wet on the rain on the ride than you would from the water. So yeah, for me, it has to sit down there. I mean, it's a 6-minute ride, which is quite a decent length to be on it. But for me, I just think that it needs something just to give it that bit more excitement. You know, maybe one or two more drops or splash areas, or just something. Especially considering now that Alton Towers no longer has a log flume, because that got taken out to put the Wicker Man in. So yeah, I definitely you know, don't think Alton Towers should get rid of it. As I said before, it interacts with the mine train, so you know there is a really nice sort of layout for it. I just think it needs a little bit more kind of oomph behind it to make it a little bit more exciting. Right, so next up is Galactica. Galactica, or it used to be called Air, opened in 2002 at the park, and is a B&M flying coaster. Now, it was called Air until 2016, and when it underwent a makeover and got themed as Galactica, and they tried to incorporate virtual reality headsets in the ride. So the riders put these goggles on, and then you went around on the track, and you felt like you were flying through space, essentially. That kind of stopped when they realised that the operations were just very slow, because the operators had to come around and wipe down the goggles in between every single ride, and it just slowed the whole operation down. So I think they kind of did away with that, but they've kept the Galactica theming and style rather than going back to Air. For me, this is going to be a controversial one, because I know a lot of people will probably put it in good, because a lot of people think it's a little bit overrated as a coaster, because it's not intense. It's quite a smooth coaster. For me, it's quite a family-friendly coaster. And you know, if you're at the age where or the stage of coasters where you're sort of in between going from junior coasters up to the most intense ones, it's a perfect coaster for that in-between stage. But for me, I would put it in must ride. Now, the reason for that is because I just absolutely love flying coasters, and I just think it's a completely different experience to any other coaster. I know obviously there is other flying coasters out there, but in terms of, you know, in terms of just the feeling of it, I think you have to make time to ride it, because it's, for me it is just a special coaster, and the whole feeling of it, and the sense of flying along the track, especially when you're sort of laying on your back looking up at the sky, is definitely hard to beat. So yeah, for me, Galactica is a must ride. Next up we have Nemesis. I don't think there's much to say about Nemesis that people don't already know. Nemesis is a B&M inverted coaster, and it has been operating at the park since 1994, which was a massive year for coasters in the UK. Coasters all up and down the country were, parks up and down the country were opening up big coasters at that stage, and Nemesis was one of those. It cost £10 million when it opened, and for me, it has to go in elite tier as a history for the UK sort of theme park scene, and just the ride itself. It's just fantastic. The way it's built into into the whole park. Now, if you weren't aware, Alton Towers has a height limit, so they are not allowed to build above tree height in their park. That's one of the planning stipulations of the local area, so that residents don't so they can't look out across the scenery and the local landscape and see rides above the trees. So you'll notice that when Alton Towers build a ride, especially a roller coaster where it needs height, for example Oblivion, that they won't go up, they will dig down. And it's the same as when they constructed Wicker Man. If anyone ever saw any of the construction stage of that, to get the height on the coaster, they had to dig down to start off on a lower foundation so that they could get the height for the coaster without going over the trees. So for me, the way that Nemesis is built into the surrounding area, I think looks fantastic. The whole idea of it, the story, the theme of it, of the Nemesis creature, is really good. And it's still just an intense ride. It still competes with modern day coasters. So for me, Nemesis has to sit in the elite tier. And as I say, if you are visiting the UK to go on any theme park attractions, then Nemesis must be on your to-do list, because it is up there as one of the best in the country. Next up we have Duel. Now Duel is a haunted house track ride. It's a ride by Mack Rides, and it opened at the Alton Towers in 1992, just called the Haunted House, and then was rebranded in 2003 as Duel. I'm not sure when it became a shooting interactive ride, because I don't think it was as early as 2003. It may have been later than that, but I could be wrong. So Duel is basically a haunted house that you kind of go around and you shoot the targets and try and get the high score. It's a good 5-6 minute ride, so it is a good length, and for me it is a fun ride. It is a fun ride to go on at the park. I would personally, looking at this list, I would put it on not bad. Just because it is what it says on the tin. It is a haunted house with a few jump scares, and then the shooting targets. It is fun to have that interactive feature. I definitely think that adds to it. If it didn't have the interactive shooting, I probably would be putting it in the Z list. But the shooting does make it a lot more fun, because you can obviously have a competition, and every time you go on, you can see who wins. So for me, Duel is in not bad. I wouldn't necessarily, again, a bit like the Mine Train, I wouldn't go out of my way to make time for it. But if I've got time and I'm walking past it and the queue looks relatively short, I will, hop on and have a go on it, because it is, it is a fun ride. For me, it goes in the not bad section. Now, Hex, Legend of the Towers. So Hex is a Vekoma madhouse. Now, you may or may not have heard of a Vekoma madhouse before. Essentially, what it is it kind of provides the illusion that the room is spinning upside down without spinning or upside down itself. So you have half of it is the ride that spins or that swings, and then half of it the room interior spins. So it gives you the feeling that you're upside down when you're actually not. Now, for me, Hex, it cost £4 million when it opened for a flat ride, which is not the cheapest. And it kind of tells you the story of the history of Alton Towers. and for me, I would put Hex in must ride, and I have to say I'm very close to putting it in elite. As a flat ride, it's possibly my favourite flat ride in the UK. I'm struggling to think of any other flat ride I would rank higher than it. I definitely think, again, if you've never been on it, really worth it. And to be honest, every time I go, I have to try and find time for it if it's open, because it's just such a bizarre ride. The Vekoma Madhouse is, and also the story behind it is really good as well. It's a really nice. Well, I say really nice. It's a really well thought out story of the branch that fell from the tree and the member of the Earl's family dying after a curse was placed on him. So there's a lot of really good backstory. It all fits in well with the history. It's actually built into the towers themselves, which is also nice that you're kind of going in and interacting with them. So yeah, for me, Hex has to be a must ride. Right, next up we have Rita, Queen of Speed. Now, Rita, Queen of Speed is an Intamin steel launch coaster, accelerator coaster, and this is a similar model to Stealth at Thorpe Park, obviously also owned by Merlin Attractions, so by the same company as Alton Towers. Now, I think what Rita struggles with, and I'm going to end up putting Rita in the good section. What I think it struggles with is the fact that Alton Towers can't build above their tree height. So the track of Rita, as you can see from these photos, has to remain quite low to stay within the tree height. And I think because of that, it limits itself to the kind of thrills you can get off of it. Although I love the type of coaster, and Stealth at Thorpe Park is a completely different beast with the height on it, just makes it a completely different ride. I personally have the mindset that Alton Towers should not have put in a launch coaster when they can't use the height for it. I just don't think it works that well. Saying that, there is still a fantastic launch on it. You still do get the intense drag from the coaster, but I also don't think it kind of fits with the theming of the area as well. It's in the dark forest section, and it started off as Rita, Queen of Speed, where it was kind of like a racing car, and then they dropped the Queen of Speed part, and they've now kind of tried to make it seem like you're escaping somewhere. So rather than when the countdown starts, rather than saying on your marks, get set, go, it now says something like keep your head back, you must escape, go, go, go. So they've tried to make it fit. I just don't think it works that well. But saying that, it's not a bad ride. Alton Towers don't have any bad coasters, in all honesty. I don't think it's a bad ride, but I think there is better rides at the park that you can ride instead of Rita. Next up, we have Spinball Wizard. Now, Spinball Wizard is a Maura spinning coaster, and that has been operating at the park since 2004 and cost £3.5 million. So this actually costs less than Hex, which is quite staggering, to be fair, considering when you think about what the rides are. Now, for me, I really enjoy Spinball Wizard. I think it is a really good ride. It fits in well where it is in the park, so it's kind of in the junior section of the park, not quite in CBeebies land, but it's just sort of on the edge, and it's quite a light-hearted ride, I will say. So I think it does fit in the area well, and the spinning coasters are fun. It does kind of lean you and swing you in with quite a bit of intensity, to be fair. But for me, I'm going to put it in the good section, and that's purely because I think it's not. If I go to the park and I don't get a chance to ride Spinball Wizard, it's not the end of my day. I'm not there gutted that I've missed out on it. It is fun, and I would happily queue up to go on it, but I wouldn't sacrifice any of the rides above to go on Spinball Wizard. It did start off being sponsored by Sonic the Hedgehog, and it was called the Sonic Spinball Wizard. But they did drop the sponsorship with Sonic at that point. And yeah, I just think it's generally a decent enough coaster, but I wouldn't quite put it in the must ride section. Next up, we have 13, which is just an Intamin family coaster, which is an interesting type of coaster to use when the marketing for this coaster was quite creepy. In fact, you know what? I'll put in a bit of the trailer just here so you can see what the marketing for 13 was like. So yeah, here's what the advert was.
If you go down to the woods today, you'd better not go.
So yeah, as you can see, that was the marketing. It was made out to be a really sort of creepy / spooky coaster. Everyone was very excited for it, and it had the world's first element on. And now I'm not going to tell you what the element is because I don't want to ruin the surprise for people who've never been on 13. If you want to ruin the surprise, go and Google it. I'm not going to be the one to tell you what happens on it. The element of surprise on the coaster is fantastic. If you do not know what is coming up, it is a fantastic surprise and is a really good element. However, it cost the park £15 million. Now, when you consider the Smiler cost 18 million and what they got with the Smiler compared to 13, I just don't think it was value for money. And for me, it sits in the good section. And it would be on par for me with Rita and Spinball. I don't think there's any that are better than the other. 13 again sits in the dark forest, and the theme of it, the theme and the station building all kind of work really well. But for me, it feels more like a bit like a Runaway mine train on steroids is how I would describe it, other than the surprise element. And I think for that, it has to sit in good. I think they could have done a lot more with it, and I think, although I appreciate the adverts are there to hype everyone up to get on a new ride, I think it kind of overhyped the ride for what it was, and it left people feeling a little bit disappointed with what the park had spent the money on. So for me, although I enjoy it and the surprise is good, it's really fun as well to take someone who's never been on it before to go and experience that world's first element, just to see their reaction. Especially, you make sure you don't tell them about it, leave it as a surprise. But yeah, really worth going to see just to watch their reaction. So yeah, I would put 13 in the good section. And finally, we have the latest attraction at Alton Towers, which is the Wicker Man. Now, Wicker Man has only been operating since 2018 and is a GCI wooden coaster. Now, the Wicker Man kind of took over where the log flume was in the park. It replaced the Flume. The Flume was a really fun coaster that was kind of themed, instead of a log flume, it was themed around bathtubs, which was a really interesting design for a log flume. Now, the Wicker Man it's the first wooden coaster to be built in the UK for over 20 years. And obviously there's the whole weird design for the fact that the Wicker Man is all about flames, and it's a wooden coaster, and although there is flame effects on the ride, it does make you think how they worked around the flames with the wood. But for me, Wicker Man has to be in the elite section. The sheer intensity and speed of that ride is crazy for a wooden coaster. It's so jolty on the bends, and although joltiness on most coasters is a bad thing, on a wooden coaster you want the sharp bends, you want to be thrown about a little bit, and it works brilliantly. The first time I went on it, I couldn't believe how powerful and how intense the ride was. So yeah, for me, the Wicker Man has to be there. The massive Wicker Man sculpture that you kind of go through on part of the ride is brilliant as well. I think that stands out and looks fantastic from a distance looking at it. and it's really worth as well if you ever are in Alton Towers for one of their sort of later openings. If you're in there at night time, it's a really well lit up ride at night as well. Again, with the Wicker Man sculpture, just looks fantastic. So yeah, that is my tier list. Let me know if you agree with that. I think that's a fairly fair assessment of the rides at the park. I don't think there's any other major attractions there that I've missed. Yes, there's stuff like there's stuff like Blade, the pirate ship, and and stuff like that. There's Enterprise, but I don't think they are worth kind of adding to this tier list, mainly because of their they are just what they are basically. There's no theming around them. With the flat rides here, with Hex and Duel, and then obviously the smaller rides where you've got the Runaway Train and River Rapids, I think with them that they are worth judging. But yeah, these are the main attractions at Alton Towers. But yeah, if you do agree with that, then let me know. If you have any differences, do you think Galactica's too high up? Do you think Rita or 13 are too low? Let me know in the comments. If you have enjoyed this, please leave a like and subscribe if you're new. And I will happily look at any other parks that I've been to, mainly UK, a few in Europe, and a couple in America as well, that I'd be happy to do a tier list for. So yeah, let me know in the comments if you'd like to see that, and I shall see you in the next episode. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.